Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. In today's video, we're going to be painting a watercolor landscape scene. After I did this lettering floral watercolor video using the Uproot brushes watercolor brush pack, more people than I think ever before with my videos posted on Instagram and tagged me when they followed this tutorial, which is super awesome. I love seeing what you guys make, and I'm so honored that you spend the time making art with me. I think that's amazing. So when I got requests to do more, I really wanted to follow through with that and give you another one featuring that brush pack. So that's what this tutorial today uses. I know I've been using it for almost a year now and I've really loved it, but I especially love the most recent brushes. If you don't have this brush pack and you want to get it, you can follow the link in the description, and let's get into it. So to begin, I am working in the texture canvas that's included with the brush set. I'm going to go ahead and delete the info layer, and I am going to start working on the very bottom layer. And I'm going to choose a white, and I'm actually going to first use a brush from the inking panel. I'm going to use the fine tip pen, and I'm also going to turn off the background color because that is white so I can see what I'm painting. I'm choosing just a solid white to paint with. What I am going to be painting here is just a circle that can be used as the base of the drawing, and then everything that I work on above that will be a clipping mask. So I'm going to draw a circle shape, press and hold on the screen, and then without lifting up my pencil, you'll see here it says ellipse created. I'm going to tap with one finger and it will make a perfect circle. I'm going to release both, and then I will kind of just recenter. And then I didn't draw a completely closed circle, so I'm gonna go in and fix that little gap. And then in this shape, I am just going to drag this color over here to the color drop feature. And you can see if I don't lift up my pencil, I can increase the threshold and it'll cover the entire canvas, but I can decrease it and it will just fill the circle. And that's why it's important to have the completely closed shape. So now that that's done, I'm going to turn back on my background and then tap on the layer above this circle, change it to a clipping mask, and this is where we're going to lay down the base color. For my color palette today, I am using my May color palette that will be going out to my email subscribers. And so if you want access to this palette, you can sign up and you will get access to it totally free, along with tons of other Procreate goodies and color palettes of months and years past. I'm going to start out by painting with this dark blue color, and I'm going to go into the Everything watercolor pack. We're going to go down a little bit to these wet on wet brushes, and there's a ton of these. They're all a little different in their amount of coverage and in the watery texture, but they are super great for laying down a texture to begin with. I am going to choose 7, and because this is a clipping mask, when I paint, what I paint will only appear in this circle, and I'm going to put a little more coverage, a little more darkness on one side here. And then I'm going to tap the arrow up here to rotate this so that my darker side ends up on top. And I'm actually even going to increase this a little bit. And so keeping this as my base layer, I am going to turn down the opacity so that I can still see what else I am painting. And then I'm going to move to the layer above it, and I'm going to turn it into a clipping mask as well. And now we're ready to start painting the next feature here. And I'm going to use this light pink color because this is going to be kind of like a dawn sunrise scene. And the brush that I'm going to use here is the Japanese scratch ink brush, which is one of my very favorite brushes because it's got this great texture. And especially for painting some more jagged mountains, I think that this will look really good. Because it's a clipping mask, it's going to keep everything contained within the circle. I'm just going to paint this big mountain peak up in front. And then I'm going to switch to this Glazy Daisy brush to paint in some of the background. And this one too has some nice edge texture here. So we're painting in maybe background peak here. And I do want a slight color difference between the two, which is why this being a more transparent brush works out really well. And by using very little pressure at this place of overlap, you don't see so much of this brush stroke on top of my original mountain. But where I can see some slight overlap here. I'm going to use the smudge tool and the fluffy smudger brush. And I'm turning the size way down, and then I'm just going to blend in carefully without going over the edge here. And so we have some basic mountain shapes, and I'm going to go to the layer above, set this as a clipping mask as well, go back into this layer, and I'm going to hit the selection tool up here. And then I'm going to make sure that this is on automatic, and that will allow me to select these two mountain shapes because they're slightly different colors, different levels of saturation. It should just select only this mountain here, and that is pretty much perfectly along the line. And so you can see the selection threshold. If I move my pencil from left to right, it'll change the amount selected. And so it's not a perfect selection. You can see that there's maybe a little bit there that's missing from the selection, but for the purposes of what I'm painting, this is perfect. And I'm going to hit add, and that'll allow me to go back and select this other smaller mountain as well. And if I wanted to save this selection, I can go into save and load and then hit this plus, and it'll save this mountain selection. So that's a super great function. So I'm going to keep that selected, and then I'm going to be sure to move into the layer above. And now I can paint just on these two peaks here. And I'm going to use this purple color. And I'm going to be painting with this stain smudger brush. And before I start painting with that stain smudger, I have to kind of figure out where the shadows are going to be. And so I'm imagining that the sun is rising maybe over here-ish. So I'm going to put in some shade here to, again, indicate that these mountains are behind this center one. And then I'm also going to paint a little bit along that side. And then I'm going to add this mountain ridge. Some slope things here that will be more in the shadow. And this is so far from perfect, but we're gonna kind of smudge and use some eraser on it too and give it some more darkness in the valley. And then I'm gonna go in again with a fluffy smudger, slightly larger. And then I am going to use the eraser tool as well, because I think this got maybe a little dark. And so I'm going to press and hold on the eraser, which will allow me to erase with the smudge brush as well, which is going to be nice for just some soft removal of this color here. Now I'm going to go in actually with some blue, and we're going to go back up and use another one of these wet on wet textures. And I'm just going to paint slightly in to add some more shadow here. And so this is super faint, but it's adding a little bit of a colder shadow rather than the warm pink and purple. And it's just going to fill that in a bit. So then I'm going to go back into this layer, and again, in the selection tool on automatic, I am going to select just this center mountain. And again, it's not perfect. We'll tweak some of these areas where it isn't fully selected, but for the most part, this is a really good base to go off of. And I'm going to save this selection too, just in case I need to go back to it. This is easier to go back in and select it this way. And now I'm going to go back into the same layer that I was painting on before. And I'll go back into this purple, light purpley blue color. And we're gonna go again back to the stain smudger brush. And we're gonna add some shadow and mountain ridges to this one too. And so just like with the other two mountains, kind of randomly adding pigment, erasing some, taking it away, adding some more shadow here on the bottom. We know that we're gonna go add in trees after. We'll also go in and add some highlight, maybe a little bit of snow cap. I feel like this is pretty good. So I'm gonna go in again with that blue, and we're gonna use the wet on wet here to just paint in a little more darkness. So I'm going to deselect this, and on this top layer still, and smudging up or filling in some of these areas. Now I'm gonna go into this layer here, and I'm just gonna lift up some of this pink color. I'm gonna use one of these wet on wet brushes with a low opacity, just start to lighten that up a tiny bit. It's a little too pink. So next up, I'm gonna paint some trees. And for this exercise, I'm gonna choose this dark blue, but I'm actually gonna make it even darker. Change it to almost black. For this, I'm going to use the trusty gouache brush because I want something a little more opaque. I don't want to be able to see the mountains beneath this. And so this brush seems like a really good fit for that. So I'm going to start in by drawing some tiny trees up here. And I'm gonna be drawing trees in a couple different ways, and they're all going to be just a little bit messy. I'm varying the amount of pressure that I use to kind of get some natural separation between the different tree boughs. And because we're drawing a lot of these trees, they really don't have to be that precise. They're going to overlap with each other. There's not going to be depth. This is all going to be pretty dark and in the shade. And so you don't have to be as concerned with creating the perfect tree shape. What you do want to get is still have some different space between the trees. So some will be closer together, some will overlap, but then you want space between the different tree branches too. All right, so next we're going to go in and add just a little bit of snow to these mountains. And so I'm going to go into this top layer above the trees and add a clipping mask. And then I'm going to change the blend mode to lighter color. And I'm going to choose just a solid white. And I'm going to use still the trusty gouache brush for this, but I'm going to be blending this a little bit more. Turn the opacity down slightly. Going to add some snow just to the very top of this mountain here. And I still want a little bit of shadow behind, so I'm not going to go over this shadow into the sky because there would still be shadow on the snow. Then I'm going to use the smudge tool, and I'm going to use the fluffy smudger on this. Turn the size down so I have a little more control, and I'm going to just blend this out slightly. I don't want to fully blend out all of the edges, but I do want to make it look a little more watery.
The truth.
And then I'm also going to go in on the eraser, again on a low opacity, and on this wet on wet brush, and just remove a little bit of the snow on the shadowy sides to still keep that shadow. And I also think I'm going to paint in the slightest bit more. I'm going to hit the selection tool here and go into my saved selections, and I'm going to select my two back mountains here, and then making sure that I'm on this layer where I had my original shadows. I'm going to use the clean and cloudy brush because it has a natural hard edge, and just add a little more definition here. Using super light pressure so that it's still pretty faintly added to it. And then go back into my selection tool and select my center mountain and do the same. What I'm going to do here is tap this to get this menu, hit select, and then I'm going to go into this blue circle. I'm going to take this arrow here and just move this off to the side. And so now when I turn up the opacity a little bit more here, I'm not going to darken the mountains. It'll darken it slightly, which is fine. I'm going to move it up to 80% opacity. And then I'm also going to go in with the smudge tool and just create less of a harsh transition between the background and the mountains. And then I am going to go up to my topmost layer, which has the snow on it, and I'm going to choose this solid white, and I'm going to use the controlled watercolor brush to add in some little stars here on the horizon and just on the very bottom, because this is not a totally night scene, just some small little dots here. I don't know if the sun is rising, but it looks kind of dark out still. I'm gonna lift some of this pigment out.
The truth shall set you free.
All right, I think that's done.
The truth.
Thank you so much for watching. I hope that this was helpful. Hopefully you learned something. If you followed along and share this on Instagram, you can tag me at WoolyPronto. Also follow me there. It's a good time. And you can get the color palette that I used in this video by signing up for my newsletter. This is my May color palette. If you want to get the brushes that I used and the paper texture, the link to that is in the description. Leave any questions or comments that you have below, and feel free to give this video a thumbs up if you liked it. Subscribe for more. I put out new videos weekly-ish. Thanks again for watching. I'll see you in the next one. My gosh, my cat's scratching. I don't know if you can hear that. She's been sleeping all day, literally all day. And this is when she chooses to make noise, of course. Oh my God.